Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, every once in a while you just have to sit down with a friend and dissect what the hell's actually going on in this business. But if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with, once again, as always. My name is David Voigt, and I am your host for this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brains not only about current projects, but state of the industry, things going forward, yada, yada, yada. But it's just a conversation, and then some, that's not a bad thing. And if you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, please do not hesitate to do so, either over at Apple, over at Spotify, or you can find everything archived over on our YouTube channel. We'd also love it if you give us a follow on social media, either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One, for all the latest updates. And finally, please check us out over at In the Seats, where our hardworking team is working on all the latest and greatest movie news, reviews, and all sorts of what to watch. We work hard, and we hope you appreciate it. I know I do. I'm the boss, so there you go. On today's episode, or this episode as it were, we're sitting down with a friend. We're sitting down with Mr. Norm Wilner, who is the senior film writer over at Now Toronto. He is the host of Someone Else's Movie podcast. He is the host of the Now What podcast, and a generally likable, affable man about town. But he's also one of the more senior film men in the city of Toronto, and I have had the great pleasure of knowing him for years, and we sit down and we talk about, in this year of the pandemic, it's like, how do people sort of look at what might be an awards contender, how do people consume their movies, how these things are going to change for better or for worse, what we see going forward, and just the general democratization of that is going on in the movie business, which isn't necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing at this stage. But Norm and I sit down and we hash it out, and I hope you enjoy, because I know I did. And full disclosure, we did have some technical difficulties on this one. There's going to be the occasional awkward cut with Norm, but otherwise it's a great talk. And again, enjoy it. Well, I mean, obviously, first off, just thanks for coming on. I appreciate your time. Just, we've been friends and colleagues for years, and it's nice to sit down and have a chat for my experiment of a podcast here, which seems to be going a lot better than I expected it to go.
Yeah, no, I'm happy you asked. I've been enjoying it.
But I mean, I think my first question is just because, especially this year, and I mean, around this time of year, you and I always get the same question. It's like, oh, what's going to win? What are the big movies? What are the best movies of the year? And I just keep sort of furrowing my brow and going, I don't know. And I mean, it's like, I've never seen a year that has been so almost democratized, I think is the right word. Like, all movies kind of feel like they're on the same level. And I'm just kind of curious, from your perspective, have you ever seen, sort of in the years that you've been doing this, a season, like a movie season, that has been so sort of even keel and sort of leveled out, as it were, I think is the right word.
Yeah, it's weird, right? It's like everything is attenuated on some kind of an equalizer graph to be really calm. And I think part of that is that this situation of virtual cinema and people being literally removed from the experience of going to see a film has kind of muted everything in a weird way. It's also kept people from getting insane about competitive campaigning, which we see every year. They're the people who just won't stop pushing themselves, and somehow I think collectively we've culturally reached a moment where nobody wants that right now. Nobody wants to hear anyone talking about how great they were in something. And while I'm perfectly happy to talk about performances I really liked and promote things like that, I think if the people who made those things happen started stepping up and campaigning the way that they do every year, it would be seen as gauche at best and deeply entitled at worst. And there's the other reality too, which is that most of the films that are really good this year aren't flashy or showy or big in that sort of way. The movies that I'm most supportive of, I guess I don't even know how to. I don't know how to talk about it anymore because, I mean, if you'd asked me if Parasite, but nobody expected it to happen. I was sure it was going to be 1917 or some flashy technical accomplishment that people could feel was important, even though it's it's just a stunt and not a particularly great one either. But this year, the stuff that I've connected to the most have been movies like um, Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, which I saw just before lockdown hit, and was the best American movie I saw for a long time this year. And then I saw Nomadland at TIFF, and that's fantastic. The closest I've come to something that I want to like basically get up on a rooftop and bang pots about is Spike Lee's film of David Byrne's American Utopia. And
totally.
yeah, which I absolutely loved, but I don't think that's a contender for awards beyond the critical strata. I don't see the Oscars embracing
No, not at all.
concert film in the same way. Although Da 5 Bloods probably has a few shots now because of Chadwick Boseman and because of Spike Lee. But I don't. Again, that's not the kind of movie you get excited about. You can respect some of these films and you can say, "Oh, this is a really good example of this kind of movie." But yeah, the big Oscar bait hasn't happened this year, or maybe it's coming in late December and we haven't seen it yet. But the only film I've seen that kind of felt like that uncomfortable campaigny sort of movie was Let Him Go, the Thomas Bazooka film with Kevin Costner and Diane Lane, which is, it's just pulp, but it's boutique pulp because it's very expensive and very well produced. It's just not about anything. So it's hard to get behind it.
It's a B movie. It's a shiny B movie, but it's a B movie.
Very much so. And Costner's really good in it. Diane Lane's very good in it. Boo Boo Stewart was fantastic. I would love to see a supporting actor campaign for him. But I think you see that movie and you walk out going, well, yeah, it's what it is. It's just not, it doesn't transcend its own limitations or do anything more than it wants or than it promises to do, which is tell a very simple story as grimly and seriously as possible, just because ultimately the whole thing is really just about an explosion of violence at the very end. So you spend 105 minutes waiting for it to get to the fireworks factory. And once it's there, it's just like, ew.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just one of those things because, I mean, especially this time of year, we're all having to sort of compile our lists and do bests of and whatnot. But I think this is the first year that, at least in my recent memory, where all of our lists are going to look either very, very similar or very starkly different. Like there's not going to be, other than maybe those 2 or 3 movies that sort of are being universally loved, like a Nomadland, we're all going to be sort of going all across the fence, which is really something that's kind of fascinated me just as we've sort of progressed through the entire year.
Yeah, I think you're really going to see who went beyond, right? Like who went above and beyond the screener pile that everybody got. And this year, I mean, there really isn't much of one. I've seen 5 or 6 films pushed by Netflix, and Warner got behind the way back, but then they stopped releasing movies, so they don't have any Oscar bait this year. I think that'll be interesting because there has been some terrific stuff that just came straight to video on demand or straight to Netflix or straight to, like HBO Max even. And there is definitely a certain subset of voting critics who want to know what to vote for.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of respect for that mentality, but
I'm with you on that.
Yeah. There are colleagues who will ask me for recommendations, and at this point in the year, and I always just feel like I should say, don't you have stuff that you like? I think the only thing I can do, I've been trying to formulate a way to say this for years. I've never really come up with one, but the only thing I can do as a critic is vote my heart. And I can't care. I should actively not care what other people are voting for because it doesn't matter if it didn't speak to me. I'm happy to, somebody walks by and say, oh, Columbus is really good. You should check that out because they didn't even screen that when it played TIFF then. And it was the week before TIFF and I would have missed it.
Yeah.
But somebody said, no, this is really good. So I saw it and I really liked it. And that's the kind of movie that I would happily start fighting for. But it wasn't, please tell me what I should think about voting for a moment, because that's just icky.
It is icky, but I mean, we've the global situation, at least for our industry, seems to have sort of at least eliminated a lot of those icky moments, and it's okay for us to go, you know what, St. Francis is really fucking good.
St.
Columbus
Francis
is
is
really
really
fucking
good.
good, you know?
That's right. Yeah, that's eligible this year. I completely forgot about that. That was going to play the, was it the Pendants Film Festival in
Yeah,
February?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
one of the first ones that got shut down. Um, and I think it got shut down, or maybe it actually happened and I was
No,
out of town.
Pendant actually did happen,
It
yeah.
did happen. I mean, I know it played there because I got the screener and I watched it and I really liked it. And of course, now that's the before times and I completely forgot about it. But yeah, no, St. Francis is great. And a film that needs support, a film that needs critical support. And maybe a couple of awards wouldn't hurt. But yeah, it used to be much more of a trick to get noticed. You'd have to come up with some kind of a stunt if you didn't get a theatrical release, if you didn't have a run somewhere. And now the playing field is level because everything looks the same on the iTunes tile.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, because I think of something like St. Francis, I think of something like, I mean, it was like The Quarry, which would have never gotten a proper sort of legit consideration in the before times, but Michael Shannon's really good in it. Shea Whigham's
Yeah.
really good in it. It's one of those movies that sort of got allowed to sort of be on an equal footing where in the past it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there
If you're
anything else
lucky,
you, yeah, I
Oh,
mean, is
sorry.
there anything else you've seen just curiosity wise that like stuff that never would have gotten noticed, but in this year you're going, oh damn, this might actually do something?
This is where I vapor lock and realize I've still been watching way too many movies. What was I thinking of? There was something I was going to bring in, actually, something from TIFF that I really, really liked that I wasn't sure was going to even open in time, because that's still technically a thing I have to think about is, did this movie play? Did this movie
Right.
have a moment
Yeah.
anywhere? There was a film called Rocks that played TIFF last year, which is opening at TIFF Digital this week, I think, and it's going to be on VOD in early December.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, TIFF gets it Friday, then VOD gets it on Tuesday. So yeah.
Oh, this next Tuesday. Okay, I
Well,
thought it was
next
a couple
Tuesday is
weeks
the
out
first,
still.
right? So
I thought it was yeah, you're right. I forgot what day. This is the other problem. Of course, I have absolutely no idea what day of the week it is or what year it is.
we've lost all concept of time. We're just watching movies constantly.
I really have. And every movie looks exactly the same. I watch them all here at home, and there's no sense of going out or interacting with the world like I used to do. And, I've been training for this all my life. I'm fine with it, but it's also been very weird and dislocating. I don't fully, I can't, it's a lot harder to ground myself is how I would put it. I've watched a lot of stuff and I've enjoyed a lot of stuff. Palm Springs is one that like it premiered on Hulu in the States in the summer, and it's going to be on Amazon in December. And that's one that turned out to be way smarter and deeper and more moving than I thought it was going to be for an Andy Samberg time loop movie. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I haven't fired it up yet, but it's definitely on the short list. So
yeah, I'm hoping maybe a screenplay nod or something for Kristen Milioti, who's fantastic. Or I mean, J.K. Simmons, who's a supporting role, is a delight in a really perverse way. So it would be nice if that got some recognition, and if Hulu plays their cards right, they might even be able to compete this year. That is the other thing. It's not the equalized playing field, but it's just the lack of competition. If you have something really unusual or surprisingly excellent, you have a shot in a way that you maybe didn't the years before. I mean, in the way that you definitely didn't the years before, because there are massive organizations of campaign consultancies that are designed to push people into those slots. Certainly at the Golden Globes and the Oscars, and it works for critics as well. I'm sure there's been some influence here or there that excludes all the smaller, scrappier stuff that might otherwise be considered in a truly fair year. One Night in Miami was the one I was going to mention, which is the Regina King film, which is coming to Amazon the first couple of weeks of January.
It's eligible,
but is eligible, right? And then also it's an Amazon Prime title everywhere but Canada, where Pacific Northwest Pictures has it. Sound of Metal, which has an absolutely fantastic
film,
performance, from Riz Ahmed, and great. Really well directed by Darius Martyr, phenomenal sound design. I mean, it's a tiny indie film, but again, it's got a shot.
Yeah, and I mean, I even think to some of the foreign stuff, like, I mean, in a normal year, something like Peninsula wouldn't have a shot at visual effects, but this year, who knows?
Yeah, maybe. I saw that one in a fairly low res streaming screener, so I don't know how good the effects are, but I'm looking forward to watching the Blu-ray.
I did fire up the 4K. It actually looks quite good. So,
oh, good. Yeah, there was a lot of macro blocking in some of the masked zombie crowd scenes.
I remember that. It was definitely a weird one, but yeah, it's just one of those things. And I mean,
remember when it was too inside baseball to complain about streaming movies, and now everybody knows how we feel?
Well, this is definitely an inside baseball episode of this podcast, but no, you're absolutely right. It's really created this weird dynamic of, we're not running around and going to theaters and going to screenings and doing this or doing junkets, yada yada yada. It's all at our desk. It's all in front of our bed. It's all in front of our Blu-ray shelves. It's all right here, and it's weird. And I mean, I remember even thinking during TIFF and in like sort of Augusty, like I kept getting the shakes because I was like, I need to be going somewhere. Why am I not in constant motion?
I realized there was a point. Sorry, I'm going to cough. I'll just pause this.
Good, yeah.
There was a point in, I think it was Labor Day weekend, where we filed what we filed. We had, we all got to look at maybe 5 or 6 movies this year. The Canadians always supply us with stuff, and the bulk of the films had to wait until the festival started.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
unprecedented. And I had to sort of talk myself down from panicking that I didn't have the usual 25 films covered. And it's like, no, that's not, it's not anybody's fault. No one's going to be upset. We all now has been very stable about the film coverage. We're still doing stuff. It's the joke at the office is that I'm the one person who works for now whose job didn't really change when the pandemic hit. I got some new responsibilities, but movies are still coming out and television is still happening, so I'm still writing about it. And TIFF this year was basically just me writing during the day and then coming back into the studio here and watching stuff on the projector at night. And at no point, I mean, I missed people that I would usually see.
Yeah,
that was weird and melancholy. There was just that. The thing I missed most was that moment where inevitably I would pass a programmer. Sometimes it's Cameron, sometimes it's Kiva Reardon. There's always a moment around the Tuesday of the festival where I see somebody on the escalator and I say, what are people not talking about? What is the movie you were hoping people would see? And if I haven't seen it, I'll seek it out. And sometimes it's great. I discovered high fantasy that way. There was a terrific documentary, Ghost Fleet, about the horrifying practice of shrimp slavery, where I don't even know, it's fishery boats that are filled with people who never get to get off or go home. They just become pulled into this life and they can't get off, and it's this really bizarre, awful thing that drives the entire world shrimp industry. So it's kind of horrible. But these are things that would have, in a year where there's 300 movies, that will blow past you. Stuff that doesn't have a publicist behind it or a distributor or a big star it's not less important. It's no less important than the good stuff. See what I just did? It's no less important than the bigger, flashier stuff, but it gets lost in the noise. And I count on that. And that didn't happen this year, although there were only 50 odd films playing and I saw 25 of them. So I feel like I covered most of what needed to be covered, but I still miss stuff. And I didn't have the Twitter is no substitute for the actual interaction of human beings, especially when all you're doing is sitting very still, watching a screen over and over and over again. You need that break. You need to talk to people.
How do you think sort of the lack of crowd and people interaction that we've all had has affected sort of the criticism? Because so much of what we do, a lot of it does get pulled from just the energy in the room, and we don't have that anymore.
That's true. I mean, I watch movies on my own all the time.
As do I. But
I think I can do a pretty good job of detaching that expectation and putting it to one side. Although I suppose comedies do play differently if it's just me watching them. I mean, obviously the energy would be different. I don't know if I think it's probably made a lot of casual moviegoers rethink the way they watch movies. It's certainly like a big, what was I thinking? Like Tenet's a good example, because most people ultimately will see that on video, on
Yeah.
Blu-ray, on VOD, on 4K when it comes out next month. It's going to be a different experience than it would have been the way I had it at the Cinesphere, even though there were
Yeah.
only another like 12 people there. You were there, right?
Yeah, I was one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was, I'm not crazy about the movie, but most of its impact is visual.
Yeah.
And the scale of it really, really matters. And while I don't think anybody should go see a movie in a movie theater right now, because as good as the safety protocols are, I don't trust other people to be as, I've gone to No Frills and counted people with their masks below their nose, or I don't trust humanity. I don't trust humanity to be as compulsive as I am, I think is how I would put it. And I don't feel comfortable in an indoor space with people.
Well, and therein lies the rub too, because I mean, especially even something like when we were at Tenet, it's 12 people, but all of them.
Yeah, and I still had to yell at somebody to put his mask
I
back on.
remember that. Yeah, but I mean, but again, at least
I didn't know him.
At least it's that one outlier, because it's there. We do get spoiled from sort of having sort of that community to know that, okay, Norm's not going to fuck around and cough all over me as he's watching the movie, or vice versa.
Sure,
that
yeah.
kind of thing. And I'm kind of curious, just from your perspective, because like you say, I'm with you, especially these days. I mean, socially distance and all that. I'm not in love with the idea of going to the cinema with the general public, but I'm kind of curious, how do you think the business is going to change? Because I'm not going to say theatrical is dead, it's dying, blah, blah, blah. That's just hyperbolic nonsense, because it survived the Spanish flu, but it'll survive this. But
it'll probably take a nap for a little while. I think like it's going to hibernate until things are better, but I don't think, ultimately, I think the most crucial thing to think about in these situations is that the business model doesn't want to change. Like Cineplex really wants things to go back to normal.
Yeah.
What they saw as normal. And I think ultimately they will. There will be, once social distancing is over, once there's enough of a vaccine population or vaccinated population, we will be able to resume normal activities. And it's going to be great. We're going to take about a year to get over the PTSD of somebody coughing in a theater. But I'm looking forward to that, because it will mean the worst is past. And I think that, it's been handled so badly.
Yeah.
The initial public health rollout was wobbly at best. I mean, the US did a far worse job than Canada did, but Canada still didn't do great. Part of this for me is that I was in London at the end of February as the virus really started to make itself known.
That's right. Yeah.
And the UK was a much more tense place than Canada was when I got back. And so I kind of had that in the back of my mind, bracing myself for what was coming, because by that point it was really clear that the virus was running wild and there was no way to keep it contained. And I remember going to movies in March and thinking, back when we were thinking that it was mostly surface based and you had to just wash your hands a lot. And I remember thinking, there is absolutely no way to control who comes in and who leaves, and in a building like the last movie I saw was at the Cineplex, the Young Dundas 24, and it was like the Ryerson students were, I think they might have already been on, no, they weren't on spring break, that was reading week, that was before I left. And you're just walking through crowds of people, and I was becoming more and more uneasy at the idea of just free movement of people who may be carrying this infectious disease, which at the time we didn't know wasn't quite as lethal. So you're still, I mean, it's more the contagion than the fatality rate that's the fear.
Yeah.
And switching into the social distancing and masking mode, I think should have been a lot easier, but people weren't very good at handling the evolution of the science and the mixed signals. And theaters keep insisting that there's no evidence of transmission inside a movie complex, and there may well not be, but part of that is because we're not doing contact tracing, so you can't be sure. And so until we know everything about the progress of the virus, until we have testing, tracing, and isolation, I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable going back to a movie theater. And we know how easily this thing spreads. And yeah, sitting in a movie theater with a mask on, I feel pretty safe, as long as everybody else is too, and nobody takes it off, and nobody's eating, and nobody's talking, and nobody's laughing, because that's how it spreads.
Exactly.
Forceful, moist breathing. But the other thing too is that if you've been to a movie in the last 20 years with the general public, you know that people are terrible at observing simple courtesy, let alone
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah.
People play with their phones, people talk too loud, people yell. I'm not like, I cannot trust a room full of those people who are the general public to keep their damn masks on and not make noise. And it's like, I don't want to be part of that experience. I'm much more comfortable watching a movie at home right now because, I mean, admittedly, I'm set up for it. I have a decent screen and a projector and
Yeah.
a room where I can do that. But yeah, I'm in no hurry. I will happily return as soon as there's a vaccine. I am in.
Oh, yeah.
But until then, I just, same with indoor dining. It's just, I have my mother-in-law is 90 years old and prone to respiratory infections. I'm
Yeah.
not going to kill her to go see a movie in a theater. I
Yeah.
refuse to take that risk. And the number of people out there who aren't either capable of understanding that it's not their health that's at risk, but the health of everyone else they meet after they get infected
Yeah, exactly.
is staggering. And I mean, we're really seeing that. We're seeing this real line being drawn between people who can think abstractly and people who cannot think altruistically.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the biggest disappointment of this whole thing. Like every movie ends with the whole world pulling.
But no, because I mean, that kind of, there's something else I didn't want to ask, because just in terms of movies in general, and I mean, just with the rise of the streamers and everything else, like there is always sort of a tendency, especially in our business, to go, oh, that's dead, or oh, the disc is dead, or oh, the digital, it's all digital now. Like, how have you found, from a sort of consumer standpoint, almost sort of the willingness to sort of expand sort of the cinematic palette or even the TV palette and try to watch different stuff, because like these days there's not much else we can do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have no dearth of stuff to cover, so I'm always looking for something else. I'm watching television, I'm watching movies, limited series, YouTube film festivals, you name it. If it's something that we can recommend to people or something we can discuss with the now, something available to the now readers, we're all in. I think we should be seeing an expansion of tastes. I'm really surprised the Queen's Gambit did as well as Netflix claims it did, because I didn't think it was all that great. But I think there's definitely it turns out there's a market for expensive psychodramas about young women playing chess in attractive clothes in the 60s. I don't know. You can never tell what's going to be a viral sensation, and everybody is absolutely hungry for something. I think the smartest thing that Disney did with The Mandalorian is refuse to release it all at once.
Yeah.
Roll it out once a week to just keep people talking about it constantly rather than dump it. Because yeah, absolutely, you can binge anything now, but then it's over to manage an English rugby team, like a football team, a soccer team, whatever you want to. Nobody seems to know what English football is anymore, but gets hired to coach a team in the Premier League and infects everyone with kindness, even though he's just been put there to fail.
Right. Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah, and it extends the compassion and consideration to every character on the show, even the ones who don't necessarily deserve it. And it's the better for it. It's such a life affirming show about people walking around together, which is, again, I'm still not getting that thing where I freak out when I watch people in party scenes. Other people are talking about that here and there. I haven't experienced it yet. I've just decided in my head that everything's a period piece set in 2019. But yeah, there's good stuff out there if people go look for it. And hopefully this vacuum that we're all living in, where we're just looking for something, anything to be different and entertaining, will lead people to stuff that they wouldn't otherwise consider trying. I'm really hoping, I've been pushing really hard for Mae Martin's show Feel Good ever since I saw that in February. Came out on Netflix in March, just as everything hit, so nobody noticed.
Yeah.
But it's a really great 6-episode comedy series about a young woman trying to be a stand-up comic and dealing with addiction issues and falling in love and obsessing, like making her new girlfriend her new obsession, her new addiction. And it's really smart about all that stuff. And yeah, people don't seem to know it's out there. So I've just been doing what I can to get people to notice. So both that and Ted Lasso are sort of eccentric, idiosyncratic ensemble comedies about flawed people trying to be better. And I'm obviously, that's hit a chord with me somehow.
And I mean, that's kind of the job right now, too, to try to, I mean, it always has been the job, but it seems more so now to find that different, that eccentric, that really compelling and well done stuff. I mean, I kind of love the fact that you got column space to do a to do a paragraph on silent running this week.
Yeah, that was fun. I just sort of snuck that in. My one insistence with this what to watch column, where I'm doing the VOD recaps and calendars and everything, is like, no, people still need to know about physical media. There's stuff coming out that's not making it to streaming, and it's interesting and fun. And a lot of it is going to be Criterion because they're doing fantastic work and eclectic choices. Choicing is not a word. Eclectic choices, but yeah,
But the
Silent
arrows
Running,
and the kinos, they're stepping it up.
Arrow, Kino, Shout Factory's doing some fun stuff. Somebody else really impressed me with a release earlier this year. Oh, sorry, I'm blanking on it. But yeah, if Silent Running comes out,
I just had this show up today. So
oh, the
the
Daughters of Darkness. Yeah. Okay, who's doing that? Is that Severin?
Blue Underground.
Blue Underground. Yeah, they're doing great work. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm confusing it with that anthology, the documentary about British horror anthologies that Severin's just releasing.
Yeah.
Today or next week. And it's hard to keep up with everything. But yeah, when Silent Running comes back and it turns out that 48 years later, it's maybe even more resonant than it was when it was first released. If you can get past the Joan Baez song, yeah, I think you kind of have to tell people about that. It's fun. I just did a gift guide with Rad for now. The two of us did the 4K Blu-ray gift guide, and he got The Irishman and Moonstruck, and I got the 4K Lord of the Rings trilogies. And they look gorgeous. People are going to want those on the Christmas break. I know people who do just lock themselves in their homes with the entire extended trilogy and watch the whole thing. And now you can watch it and actually see the detail a little better. That's nice. Ultimately, it's all comfort, right? We shouldn't be judging people for liking what they like or watching what they want to watch right now. What I can do is just try to nudge them towards something that maybe will make their lives a little better for having seen it, expand the world a bit. That's where, Feel Good and Ted Lasso come in for me. And maybe Silent Running too. Why not? Look, it's a movie about the environmental importance of humanity. No, I guess it's a movie about the importance of humanity to the environment in a weird way that I don't even know that Douglas Trumbull thought it was going to be that when he made it. And it just has this message that still really works.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of why, at least on my end, we started the online watch along parties and just doing other stuff. It's like, because at the end of the day, this job is fun. I mean, we can bitch and piss and moan and complain and do 18 other different things, but at the end of the day, this is fun, and it's a privilege to be able to do it in some way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah. I can't believe I'm still getting to do it, honestly, the way things are. But I've been at this for way too long, and every now and then you just find something that makes you really happy you're doing it, and you stumble over it, or you have it teed up for you by somebody, or a friend recommends something, and all of a sudden it's just like, oh right, this is the only thing I can ever see myself doing. This is all I ever want to do, is to just absorb this art, which it is, and then tell people about it and champion it when I can. And Kate, my wife, loves reading my negative reviews because she says there's something about anger that comes out in a fun way, that she can feel me venting at things that disappoint me. But I don't enjoy that. I would really much rather write 1,000 words about a show that I love than 600 words about, Come Play, where the haunted iPad movie is just so bad. It's just more interesting to write about something that moves me or makes me laugh or makes me respond in any way.
All right, so I guess just to put a bow on all this, for young Norm Wilner back in the day, can you boil it down to one movie or one moment that sort of got you in the business?
Well, my grandfather owned a movie theater when I was a kid, so I got to visit the projection booth when I was little, and it was called the Orpheum. It was a Bathurst and Queen. It's a home and craft decor store now. The marquee's still there. It just says home and craft decor now. And that was probably it, because it was just fun. It was just fun to watch the projectors roll and to see the light come through the screen and be part of all of that. And Jonathan Demme says once, because he was reviewing movies for his university newspaper, I think, or his high school paper. He said, once you find out there's a way to see movies for free, you'll do anything you can to keep doing that. So that was mine. It was they come to you, the movies, and you put them together and you make them play for an audience of 200 people. That's cool. And then I've always been a movie kid, I guess. I never really had a choice at a chance at a normal life.
No, it's funny, and because people always ask me this, it's like, oh, what's your favorite movies? What's your desert island discs? I can never answer that because from my perspective, my desert island disc is being able to grab something and go, you know what? You should see this. This is your desert island disc. For you, is that sort of the ultimate joy out of all of it?
Recommending things to
Yeah,
people? Yeah, probably. I mean, just it's all about sharing it, right? I mean,
exactly.
the
Yeah,
the thing that the thing that drives me as a critic is the knowledge and the appreciation, really, for the fact that 600 people sitting in the same space doing the same thing, looking at the same thing, are all coming away with different responses.
yeah,
I wish there was a way to map brain activity the way there is to like a heat sensor. You like imagine predator vision of an audience in a movie theater and watching everybody respond in different ways, different bursts of color, different blooms of heat to individual moments that should theoretically land the same way for everyone, but they don't, because we're all different and we all bring our own experience to everything we do. Um, that is
it's like when people
that's
apologize for not liking something. It's like, no, no, don't apologize. I want you to have a different opinion than me.
Yeah. For me, it's when people apologize for liking something. It's like, no, John Harkness said, whose job I'm now doing it now, said there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure. There's only pleasure. And
Yeah,
he's not wrong.
yeah,
Guilty pleasure has come to mean something different than I think it used to, which is now it's a thing I love beyond all reason. And I guess that's probably valid, but ultimately, if you love something, you love it, and you don't have to you shouldn't have to qualify why, um, unless you're in court over it or something. But ultimately, I think movies are the the safest and greatest expression of empathy and understanding that you can ask for. You can spend 2 hours in somebody else's life if they do it right, and you can feel and experience the things that the screen wants you to feel and experience, and be played like an instrument by a
yeah,
maestro if it's done properly. Or you can just have fun. You can watch a superhero movie for a couple of hours and still just come away enjoying yourself. But when it really works, when it really lands, something like Nomadland that just illuminates an entire social structure that you didn't even know existed, something like Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, which is one of the saddest movies I've ever seen about being a teenager in America, even though
yeah,
it's ultimately a positive film. uh, it's just simply, it's a process movie about how difficult America has made it for a woman to choose what to do with her own body. Or something like, I'm trying to think of another movie that just lets you experience something so vicariously and so unexpected a way. Yeah, even Parasite, really, which
yeah,
is the greatest illustration of late capitalism, that somehow lets you understand where everyone is coming from, even when they're doing the worst possible thing. Bong does that with every movie he makes. But yeah, Memories of Murder, that's one I would use as
exactly.
an
Yeah,
example, which just came back in a restored version and is going to be part of the Criterion Collection in the new year, I understand. That's a film that has been dormant in North America for at least 10 years, right? Since the DVD went out of
yeah,
print, and it hasn't lost a step.
no,
It's fantastic. And watching, I got to revisit that early this year because Albert Shin picked it for someone else's movie. So I just rewatched it to prep for the podcast, and it's like, oh my God, I'd forgotten just how good this is, just how involving and slippery and funny and
yeah,
sad and strange, and how in 2003 Bong Joon-ho was doing everything he's doing now, which was just this incredible um he's like a human multi-tool of filmmaking. I don't know how else to explain it. He can make it all function together and do it just so elegantly. And then so I just started banging the pan about that for most of the spring, and then again in the fall when it came out on disc. My greatest regret this time last year, it was Thanksgiving in New York, and I go used to go to Thanksgiving in New York every year. Don't do it this year, obviously, which is breaking my heart. But my plane landed just as Memories of Murder started screening at Lincoln Center in the new restoration for the new Korean cinema program. And it's just like, God damn it, an hour earlier and I could have been there. And again, I'm in New York City. It's Thanksgiving Day. That shouldn't be where my mind goes. Like I should be sitting in a movie theater watching something, but that's who I am. You ask me if I ever have a chance at normal. No, this is who I've always been.
And I mean, just especially just now, because that really has opened up the door to allow these movies that get forgotten and these moments to sort of be appreciated. And I mean, there's nothing wrong if you want to watch a superhero movie and have fun with it and fine, but there is so much more levels to the art form. And I just have to say, even on a personal level, when I started doing this, my mantra was always like, oh, I got to go to everything I can just to sort of expand my palette. And
sure,
I always took a little bit of pride knowing, okay, the guy, Norm, who's doing this for a living, was there pretty much almost every screening as I was too.
Aw, that's very kind of you. I mean, it's the job, right? If you're only seeing the movies you want to see, you're doing it wrong.
Exactly.
Because nobody knows. You don't know what the next film is going to be.
Yeah.
Or that's not fair. You know what the next film is going to be. They usually give you a list, but you don't know how you're going to respond to something.
Yeah.
And it's worse now, I think, with marketing the way it is, because like I've always tried to avoid trailers and TV spots and stuff, just because first of all, I don't want to know anything about the movie before I see it.
Yeah.
Secondly, I don't want to see scenes that I will then be trying to plug in my head to figure out, where they are in the movie while I'm watching the movie. But they're also there's so much active deception in trailers now to like cutting scenes together to make them look like they're a single moment, or showing you something from the end to make it look like it's the beginning. It's marketing. It's how it works. And nobody, I think,
scenes that don't even make the final cut.
Yeah. Nobody expects the trailer to be an accurate representation of the film, but I don't want to be told what kind of movie I'm going to see, like the tone of it, because that might turn me off of actually seeing the film. And, there are some terrible movies out there with great trailers, and there's some great movies with terrible trailers. And I just let me watch. Let me see it for myself and decide how I feel, because I might love it, and that might surprise everybody, myself included.
And and I think that's a great note to end on. That's just the important thing to go into when you watch any movie, because you really have to sort of be open to the art form, no matter where it takes you.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be. Michael Bay tends to shut me down pretty fast. But that's because I've seen everything he's made. It's because I don't learn.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have seen this man shaking his head at the end of a Michael Bay movie, so it's a fact.
All of them. All of them.
But brother, thanks for the time. God willing, we'll see each other in person in April for a Bond movie. But
that'd be nice. I look forward to it.
All right, and thanks again for doing this, man. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was fun. I'm glad you could do it.